Hey everyone, it's Ryan from Rocky Mountain Cigar Show here, and you will never believe the day that I've had. All right, so this has been between my wife coming down with COVID this morning. I don't mean to unload on it, guys, but I've got to vent a little bit here, right? This has just been a very trying day, having audio issues with my shit over here. Boy, I tell you what, I could certainly use a great conversation and a great cigar and a very, very stiff drink. I don't know how much stiffer it gets when you drink bourbon neat, but as stiff as I can make that drink, I want it. So, quick little show update. I apologize so much that this was not an earlier show. Please forgive me. My wife came down with COVID this morning, actually, and we've been kind of fighting with it throughout the day. And she tested herself, and turns out she actually does have COVID. So she is actually in the process of getting healed up, resting. So I had to take care of my daughter. And in doing that, the show had to get pushed back. So big thank you to all of the sponsors that make this show remotely possible here. We have K by Karen Berger. We have the big man Abe DeBabna himself. We have Drew Estate, Christoph Cigars, BAMF Cigars. We also have new to the show over here, and what I will be drinking tonight is the Axon Oak Rye Whiskey. Axon Oak being the official drink of the Rocky Mountain Cigar Show, and the only bourbon that you will ever see on this show, because we're in Colorado and I'm going to support a local Colorado distillery. And it just so happens to be my favorite bourbon. Been drinking it long before they ever even heard about my show, or long before I ever even considered making the show. And last but absolutely not least, my big sponsor is New Air Humidors. If you ever are looking for a fantastic humidor, go in the description below. Select click on the link for the New Air Humidor and use my 15% off discount code. As well as while you're just looking through the descriptions, go ahead and jump over to BAMFcigars.com, BAMF, or ROCF and my promo code will get you 15% off the entire website. Definitely going to want to make sure you pick up a humidor, and I supply you the coupon code to pick up the cigars to go with it. So, as well, getting in here really, really quickly, for all of those that are in the Colorado area, we have our first annual. Can we say first annual? I think I can get away with saying first annual. We have our first annual Rocky Mountain Cigar Night benefit at the Dunafin Castle. It is July 29th, 7 to 10 p.m., $150 per ticket per person. There's going to be appetizers, booze, wine, beer, coffee, soft drinks if you don't drink alcohol. Complimentary 5-pack of cigars comes with that ticket. Maybe even more, but a minimum of 5 cigars. And in fact, we just picked up a local Colorado cigar manufacturer today that will be in that 5-pack. So you're definitely going to want to make sure you come to the event. We're making a badass challenge coin that will be a Glencairn topper, and we're working on getting Glencairns made for the event, as well as live music and both live and silent auctions. Come join us for a night in the stars, smoking in a castle, having great drinks, and raising money for the children over at the Ronald McDonald House Charities. So enough of me talking at this point in time. Let's go ahead and bring in Kevin. Finally. How you doing, Kevin?
Good. What's up, brother?
Oh, not too much.
Chilling out, about to smoke a cigar with you.
Absolutely, dude. I'm so excited to smoke a cigar with you. I'm going to give you the floor for a few minutes. Introduce yourself. Let everybody know the brand that you own, and give a little bit of information about yourself. And I'm just going to hang out in the background and shut up for a minute. So, floor's yours, Kev.
Hey guys, I'm Kevin from Rockefeller. A lot of you guys know me. We're a nationwide brand. I just moved down to Florida. Our cigars are, which I love, by the way. Very nice, very humid. It's a lot warmer in New York. I know all my New York friends will hate me right now, but that's okay. Anyway, keeps me close to Nicaragua and Dominican Republic, and I love going to Nicaragua all the time. I'm working on different blends. One of our factories, cigars are blended at, is American Caribbean. And American Caribbean has a master blender named Jose Valdez. And our core Nicaraguan line comes out of there, which is a nice San Andreas Maduro, Ecuadorian Habano, and a Ecuadorian Connecticut cigar. Then we have another cigar called the Gold Series. It's one of our higher end line, which is San Andreas Pennsylvania broadleaf box press with Nicaraguan fillers. Then we have a whole Dominican line out of Tabacalera L&V, which is Victor de la Cruz, who's an absolute master blender for those who know him. He was production manager at Davidoff during the 1980s for many years. And that's a little bit about Rockefeller. And it's the first time on the Rocky Mountain Show. I'm looking forward to it. We had a little bit of technology issues, but we got it going. We're here and we're ready to go.
Absolutely, dude. And thank you so much for sticking through this. Don't fully understand why those tech problems happen, but you know they do, and that's just what it is. So I was trying to get this posted through, but what are you smoking tonight, my friend?
I'm smoking our Ecuadorian Habano Robusto. So it's a beautiful Ecuadorian Habano. It's got a little white pepper to it. It's got Dominican Piloto in the middle. It's got a little Esteli and Jalapa around, like sandwich with the Piloto in the middle. It's great.
Very, very nice. So let's kind of start by just how's your week been? I know you're in your car, so I think you're out.
I'm always in my
around.
car.
So tell us where have you been tonight? Where are you coming from?
When we do move into a house, I will have a studio. When I'm in home base, but I'm always in my car. I travel all over the country, and the great part about that is, you know, this whole cigar, I've been smoking for years, right? So to me, yeah, I'm a brand owner, I'm a manufacturer, but I'm just another cigar smoker. And I love just hanging out, meeting people over the country, and every lounge is the magic of its own lounge. And that's the best part about this industry, the blending and meeting the people. I'm in my car, and I just came off a 14-day trip up to the Northeast and back down.
Wow. 14-day trip. So was that like a complete driving trip for you, or was that some flight, some driving?
Half and half.
Okay. That's not too bad. So whereabouts were you on the East Coast? What were you doing? What are some of the shops you were at?
Okay, so a very good friend of mine's up there. This guy, Harry from Harry's Habana Hut. I don't know if you guys know him or not. He's a legend. He's a legend, and more than that, his uncle was Oscar from CAO, Chano.
Oh, okay.
So he's a very close friend of mine, and I was going up there because we're working on a blend for him, and it's actually done. And we're going to celebrate his 50th birthday in a bang up there. So I'm looking forward to that. So I went to see him. I went to stop at Highlands Ranch, which is a long-time store of mine. For years, I've been there. And I hit a bunch of other lounges on the way up through Long Island. So I probably hit about, maybe 10 lounges in Long Island.
Now are
York.
these?
Then I headed towards Connecticut. I went to see my good buddies at Havana 25 in Monroe. Good people. My buddy BJ runs a store now. And then I went to go see a really good friend of mine, this guy Fred, who owns Smoke Easy. They're doing a clam bake this week. I'm sorry I can't be up there, but it's a wonderful store and wonderful people up there. I don't know if you ever been up to like Northern Connecticut. It's nice.
You know, I have not had the ability to really go east of Ohio, to be honest with you. I'm from Illinois. I'm from the south side of Chicago, and just have never made it up that way for one reason or the other. It's not because I don't want to. I tell this to my wife all the time. I want to eat my way through the East Coast. Like I want to just literally, like I don't even care about seeing the buildings or the ocean. Just show me the restaurant, give me the damn menu. and that is how I like to travel. I travel with my stomach, whereas people like to travel for, Instagram photos. I'm just like, where's the closest place that's got great food?
I get
Chicago
that,
pizza is better, but I would love to try New York pizza.
I used to work on 121 South LaSalle Street in Chicago by West Jackson.
Okay.
Yeah, we had an office
yeah.
years ago. So for many years, I've gone to Chicago.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm a country boy at heart. My summers were spent in Ocala, Florida, on 10 acres, fishing, hunting, shooting, blowing things up by doing shit that I shouldn't do, driving tractors. And then I would go back to Illinois where I couldn't do any of that for a whole year. And then I would go back down there. And so I landlocked myself. I am not an ocean person. I'm always afraid someone's going to push me back in thinking I beached myself. So I love Colorado. I'm surrounded by the mountains, the trees. My wife and I fell in love with Colorado on our honeymoon, and I don't see us ever leaving.
That's great.
I don't see it, but who knows? So how long you were born in New York, right?
Yep.
And you just moved down to Florida. So what was
I've been in New York my whole life.
Okay.
I'm a New Yorker. I was a New Yorker. I was born in New York City. I was my whole life, moved to Long Island, then moved back.
Okay, so what has you moving down to Florida outside of just the industry, or were you always kind of like a summers in New York,
No,
winters
not at
down
all.
in Florida?
Not at all, but New York's crazy now. It's not the same city. It's a different world, New York now.
Well, yeah.
You said it. I'm a Second Amendment person too, so.
Oh yeah, no, I live next to military bases. I believe there should be a fire sale every month. And you've been in Chicago. If you can push it, tow it, or do like Stu, you could be able to take it home. It's really simple for me. If you can drive it, fly it, drag it, or carry it home, you should be allowed to own the damn thing. So I'm right there with you. And New York is definitely not a Second Amendment state. I mean, you can't even get a concealed carry permit.
If somebody breaks into your house, you have to do every effort in the world to back out of your house.
Oh yeah, no. Here we just squeeze. I mean, it's that simple here. Colorado's not a state that, or I should say, I take it back. Colorado's like Illinois from the standpoint of north of 80. We're a liberal state.
Okay.
So around Denver, we're liberal. Everywhere else in the state, outside of some of the hippie communes way out there on the west side of the mountains. Outside of that, the state is, I mean, our sheriff down here pretty much told the governor to go pound sand for his red flag laws. He said he was not enforcing them and they would not be enforced in his county. So we've got a pretty good area that we live in. So let's get into the cigars. Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I used to ski down in Colorado a lot. In fact, when I was 26, my ex-wife, we just decided to fly down, hop in the van, change in the van, and get on the slopes. So,
okay.
I used to ski a lot down that area, man. I love it down there.
Oh,
I mean, I haven't really skied in a long time, but when I did, it was a lot of fun.
Dude, skiing almost costs, you got to like take a mortgage out on your home to ski these days.
Right.
I mean, for one, don't even talk about the 3-hour line just to get to where you need to go to ski. But I mean, add in the fact that you're probably looking at around $200 a day for gear, depending on what you rent, and then day passes. It's all so ridiculous with $5 a gallon gasoline now.
Well, it's so corporate now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I
That's
mean,
why
you
it
could.
wasn't corporate when I used to ski there.
Now, what do you mean by corporate?
Vail Resorts, everything, you know what I mean? Like they spend so
Hmm.
much money. It's public company.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Well, Vail was created as a ski town to begin with, but no, I totally understand what you're saying. Breckenridge is kind of turning into that thing, into that way as well. So, but let's kind of get into the cigars a little bit. So
Go ahead, man.
tell us how you started with cigars. What were they? How old were you? And what developed your love of this rolled up leaf that we all enjoy?
So I was 19 years old. I was at the Brooklyn Aquarium. My grandfather gave me a white owl.
Mm,
I had white owl Royal Jamaican back then, so I had a white owl. And that's really what started me off. And then after that, I started smoking some Avos. And then after Avos, I went to I started smoking a lot of Fuente cigars like the Curly Head and then the
yep,
858 Maduro, whatever.
yep.
In fact, I saw Carlito last night. We were talking about it. That cigar, that 85, oh my God, man. I used to smoke that like crazy. It was my everyday cigar. And then
Yeah,
I started, then I smoked Don Pepin, then I smoked Padron. That's how I started.
so you've
And
kind
the first
of
place I started smoking at was a place in New York City, which was legendary at the time, De La Concha.
okay.
Lionel and George taught me how to smoke cigars pretty much. Yep.
So this is something that's been. I know you had told me you're 57, so you've
30
got
something years. Yeah.
30 some years into smoking. So you were around. You were smoking cigars then in that 90s boom, or at least right at the tail end of it.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's when I started. Yep.
So let's kind of start there then. So I always am curious, just because I was born in '85. I'm 37. I wasn't smoking cigars, at least not legally, during the boom of the '90s. So I would love to kind of hear what you think the boom of the '90s is versus the boom of COVID, because the COVID boom. I
There
think
were a
that's a
lot less
fair.
brands. There wasn't as much competition. There was a lot less brands. And they were pretty straightforward brands.
Okay.
That's, you know what I mean? That's pretty much my feeling. I started to see Rocky emerge by going out, and he's done so much for our industry. He's a great guy. Going out and doing a lot of events. We saw Perdomo in New York City at the time when I was working on Wall Street, because I worked on Wall Street for a long time. And, you know, little by little, the cigars started getting better. They didn't really get boutique until I'd say probably the mid 2000s, when
Okay.
more and more brands started popping up.
Now, let's touch base on that for a second, because that's always a question I'd love to ask what I would consider to be like a non-legacy brand, um, like a Fuente or Padron. What is your definition of a boutique cigar?
So I think so. Let me go back a little bit. So the way the IPA beer market hit, right, with all the boutique IPA beers, took off, and I think the number, we were talking about this the other day. I think the number of the whole beer market, I think the IPA, and I could be wrong. In craft beers, it's probably about 40%, and I think if you put those distilleries and all the IPAs, maybe it's 12-13% of the whole entire beer market, which is an incredible amount. So when I came into this thing, so I want to go back a little bit. So when I bought the company in 2016, the FDA was all over us, and I was like, you know what? Is this a smart move? And I remember I called Soretsky from Famous, and I called somebody else, and they turned around, and I said, you know what? Fucking, I'm gonna do it. And then they got rid of the packaging rule, and now I knew I could play. You know what I mean? So I could create. So what happened with that beer market is they were able to create and differentiate themselves from other beers, right? So when the boutiques hit, they were able to differentiate themselves from the core lines. Yet you still had a lot of older people smoking those core lines, and I think the way the industry is going is companies like General, companies like Altadis are going to be forced as the millennials and Generation Z come in to either buy a boutique brand or become more boutiquey, because the growth has gone so high on the other side. There's not much more up for them to go. That
Okay.
makes sense.
No,
So I consider
absolutely.
right. So I mean, I can name boutique brands. Everyone looks at it differently about how many cigars you make. I mean, you could be high boutique, you could be mid boutique, you could be, you know what I mean. People still consider Padron a boutique brand. I don't.
Really?
Yeah, I've heard that.
See, that's just like there's just no. Why do you think there's no hard and fast definition of boutique? Because I've heard it, like you said, it's all over the place, right? It's based on sales, it's based on how long you've been around, it's based on how much you have. Why do you
Right.
think there's no hard and fast rule for
Because
what
it
a
keeps
boutique
changing.
is?
Because it
Okay,
keeps changing. That's why.
okay, because I know that
Because
what is
tomorrow, I mean, a year from now, General could become 30% boutique. So could Altadis. They're always going to have those core names, but that's where the growth's going to come in. There's no doubt in my mind that boutique cigars is the growth of this market, as long as the FDA is at bay.
no, and I totally agree with you. I think personally, I think it's a lot of the boutique brands that bring in the younger generation because of the marketing. I think you would agree with me, or at least I hope you would, that
Demographics, yeah.
yeah, but I think boutique brands have a better handle on marketing because they have to. You get a Padron that doesn't even really have a sales team, and Fuente's just always going to sell even if nobody shows up. But I do personally feel that the older brands do owe a lot to the younger brands because of the way that you guys market your stuff is much more to the now
There were no
versus
real
how it was.
there were no real cigar clubs left and right coming out until the boutiques came out. I
Mm-hmm.
noticed. You know what I mean? When I was smoking, there were no cigar clubs in the 90s, or very,
Yeah,
very few, right? Yes, that was social media, but it was also the culture of boutique cigars growing.
sure.
I think that has a big amount to do to it. And in fact, the last two limited editions we did, and we have another one coming out, but the last two we did with the Art of Magic, right? We had the Art of Magic one we did with Aganosa. I hired Jesse Flores to design it, who did a wonderful job, who used to be with Drew Estate. And I had him do the second box. Wonderful job. I love graffiti art. And the point is you could play, right? You could differentiate, you could change it around. And because you're working on a small scale, you can do it a lot quicker than a bigger brand and turn it over a lot quicker. See,
So
I look at tobacco. We differentiate ourselves because we always have product.
sure.
And during COVID, that helped us a lot. Where a lot of boutique brands did. And I'm not listen. A lot of those boutique brands out there, those guys are my friends, so I would never say a bad word about them. I think it's a wonderful industry. It's a small industry, and I think everyone together could blossom together.
Sure.
And that's
Absolutely.
coming from being a cigar smoker. So, because that's first
Absolutely.
what I am, right? So I think by that period, because we had product, because I look at tobacco is better than money in the bank. I was a gold trader, and to me, tobacco commodity is much better than having green cash in the bank. That's just me.
Well, it's worth something, right? I mean,
Right. At the end of the day, you
that
could go to sleep at night. It's not going to be a zero.
no, that green cash could literally be ripped out from underneath you the next day, or could just be inflated to look like the Weimar Republic before too long. And I know that's a really old term, but I knew you would
Oh, I
pick up
know it
on
well.
that. I know that. I'm a bit of a history guy myself,
Me
so
too.
um, so okay. So why I'm very curious based on what you just said if we could touch on that. I've never heard somebody say that tobacco is a better commodity or than gold. Can you explain what you mean by that?
It's liquid gold. You keep reusing it. That's what I mean by that. Plus, you have FDA fees that are going up constantly. So why not whole product?
Okay.
That's how I look at it. And if you love it
Huh.
and you enjoy smoking and you love the leaf, it's really not that big of a deal.
No, it's not. It's not.
Right.
So when you were starting Rockefeller, how did
So
you
I
come
didn't
up with
start Rockefeller. I bought Rockefeller.
or when you picked up Rockefeller, how did
I was
that
50%
name?
partner, and then I took the whole thing over.
Okay, so how did the name Rockefeller come up?
So there's this guy who's married to a Rockefeller who was one of the partners. And he had a Rockefeller liquor company, Rockefeller Spirits, which is actually bringing it back now. And we're working on something really big in the near future. But anyway, so he brought the brand back. And I wanted to keep him on as a consultant. The other guy didn't want him. I knew there was something wrong with that. But you live and learn. You live and learn. But anyway, so that's how Rockefeller came to be.
And now, when you say like, as in the Rockefellers, right?
Yes, he's married to one of the cousins. Yes.
Okay. So how you bought in, and then you ended up taking over the brand.
Yep.
Once you took the brand over, somebody that's obviously had a very extensive career on Wall Street, you understand business. What were some of the things that you changed right away within?
I immediately made sure everything was trademarked. I took inventory down to 0. I wanted to start it my way, and then I started going back to the stores. That's what I did. And we came out with the Nicaraguan. We had the Nicaraguan blend in 2015 and before, but only a few stores had it. So I've been to Nicaragua before. I've been to Managua before, but never Esteli. So I went down to the factories. I spoke to the guy at the factory, and I said, why am I going to use you? There's 10 other factories, in a New York way. Not to be an asshole, but pretty much was. And then I kept my mouth shut, like I say on other podcasts, and just listened and learned. And then ever since that, I've been hooked. I love going down blending with these guys. They're amazing. And Jose Valdez is a unique guy. He grew up in Pinar del Rio. He's a 4th-generation Cuban grower, and he's got a lot of wisdom and a lot of knowledge, and I'm constantly learning from him. And I think it's the blending part that I really, really loved. So what happened was, after that, I pulled all the Dominicans, because we originally had Dominicans at the Dominican factory, but I wasn't a big fan of them. And I went back and worked with him again, and we came out with this Dominican Blue with a Connecticut broadleaf running through it. That was a phenomenal cigar for us. It's done really, really well. First, he came out with a Corojo, and the Corojo I've used for event cigars, and some stores have them, but very few. And then when we came out with this Dominican Blue, and I told him, I said, listen, it needs to appeal to more people. And we were using a Sumatra Binder, and if you know, Sumatra and Nicaraguan Habano binders burn consistently well. So I like using the Sumatra Binder. If I'm not using it as a leaf, I like using it as a binder. And we paired it, and we put the Connecticut. We had some Dominico and Piloto, and we put some Connecticut broadleaf on it. And he's a master. He's really good, and he knows the percentages and everything. And we sat down and we talked about it. I stayed down there a while, kept testing it back and forth, and we came out with a great blend. And we have a ton of Vitolas from down there pre FDA days, and we started making it. We made it in a short pyramid, and then we came out for IPCPR once in a blue Churchill that I really, really like, and it's been a wonderful cigar for us.
So when you brought everything back down to 0, did you keep any of the other blends as they were, or did you rework most of them, like you just said?
So I kept some of the blends. We had an old Connecticut that was phenomenal, but it was limited. I kept that blend. We had a box press Maduro from 2000, an old blend that was really good that I kept. Not that many people had it. So I guess I kept about, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 blends.
Okay. And how many were there before you took away the rest? What was that total number?
Probably over 20.
Okay. So you cleaned house pretty well.
Yeah.
And then you had also mentioned, I've been in sales 20 years, my entire career. What I do for actually a living outside of the show is I'm in sales. I sell software. So I'm always very fascinated. You had said that you redid how you went into the stores. Can you kind of explain what the process was?
So the old guy wasn't a well-liked guy, unfortunately. And I went in there and I went slow with the stores, and I brought 94% of them back.
Oh wow! So you guys
Yeah,
lost a shit ton of stores, and then
yeah, I
you
brought
brought them back.
94%. Well, they didn't. They weren't a fan of his. That's all.
So when
Not that
you
he did anything
told
wrong.
them,
They just weren't a fan of his, and they wanted me. Yeah,
so
we
when
got
you
along
told
great.
them, when you told them that you were now taking over the whole company, did you have to kind of like reconvince them? Like, what was your pitch? Was it different?
Yeah, a little bit. I had to reconvince him, and we did smoke tests. We took off. I had them do with their customers. I took off the band and did blind smoke testing, and they liked the brand. And I came in, showed them a lot of love and attention. They brought it in, and it's a different experience. I try when I'm doing an event or when I'm introducing a cigar, I try to make it a wonderful experience for everybody, and to sit there and
So
teach them about the blends.
so you do a whole, so when you're talking about when you do like a show, a lounge event, you bring
Yes,
in, and it's much more of an educational process for the consumer
that's
than just
important. I
here.
think for the younger generation, it's all about education. It's all
Now
about the
why
retail, educating the smoker, and that's really the next process. And people have been doing it, but I think education is key to get those young smokers away from vaping into cigars. Well, listen, will you change all of them? No, but listen, all of a sudden you got a job, you're making money, you feel great. Hey, smoke a cigar, right? That means you're on
sure.
another level as you're growing older, right? So
Mhm.
how do we get the $1 million question for every company, every brand is how do we get that next group of smokers into smoking cigars?
And why do you think that involves, and I'm not saying you're wrong, I personally 100% agree with your approach, by the way. But why do you think today requires more education than 90s did?
I guess because before the first cigar boom in the 90s, everyone knew those brands. They were like your grandfather's brands. You know what I mean? And like I knew Cohiba. I knew
Mm-hmm.
Romeo and Julieta, right? And now there's new boutique brands out there, and the consumers need to be educated. And a lot of the consumers, they're afraid of change. But once they change and they realize, hey, you know what? That's a good cigar. It was like CAO in the beginning. It was a great cigar. It was like Camacho in the beginning. It was a great cigar. It wasn't bought by these big companies.
Yeah,
You see where I'm coming from? So now all these
absolutely.
boutique brands, and there are some great ones out there.
I've been told that and this is from some people that have been smoking for a while. One of the big things that they noticed, and to your point, is the Camacho Triple Maduro is not the same as it used to be.
No way.
Once they were taken over by Davidoff. Now, why do you think that why would a company buy some other company out? Why do you think that would destroy the, or not destroy, but change the product to that extent that now people are out looking for other brands to fulfill that need?
So American Caribbean, so take our factory, right? American Caribbean makes a lot of cigars. We can make 1 million cigars in 3 months. Okay?
Wow.
140 rollers, 70 pairs. And and the truth of the matter is there's still love put into the cigars. I think when it's mass produced, there's not as much love put into the cigars. You know what I mean? We have consistent tobacco, right? But at the end of the day, not everybody has consistent tobaccos for long periods of time. Now you're a retailer, you take a boutique brand in, you get somebody hooked on that boutique brand, and then they don't have the production. That becomes a problem. So we never wanted to be in that spot. We never wanted to be where a retailer took our brand in, somebody turned around and liked the smoke because they were educated on it, and then he didn't have any more cigars. That was one in the very beginning. I didn't want to be in that situation ever.
Now there is some good point to doing. Now would let me back up. When you run out of a cigar, that's not necessarily a bad thing, of
Right,
course, unless that cigar is supposed to be a core line. So
right.
do you then have a lot of quote unquote limited editions, yearly only releases, bi-yearly releases?
So I was a magician since I'm 8 years old.
Okay.
So that's where Art of Magic came in, the magic of Rockefeller. So we started doing this limited edition because I wanted to bring magic into the brand. I've always wanted to do that. So we made just a certain amount for that cigar. So I wasn't worried about having extra tobacco because millennials like limited editions, signed stuff they can collect. That's another way to get the younger generation.
Now, do you think that also
and
applies
you're 37,
to
you're 37, you're a millennial.
Oh, yeah, no, for sure. But let's keep that under wraps.
Ask you, right, so what do you look for?
Honestly, man, I'll be very straightforward with you, dude. I am a collector of the coins. I love, there's my Abe coin and there's my Dojo coin. I love the challenge coins, and you're right. I love the limited edition stuff because it's quote unquote limited edition. But do you think it's fair to say something's limited edition when it releases every year, but a limited amount?
So we're doing the Art of Magic in different factories. That's what makes it different. So the first one we did with Aganosa, that was incredible. Great job with Terrence and Paul. That was an amazing situation. Next one we did with American Caribbean, we doubled it from 2,000 to 4,000. We sold out of both of them. And now the third one coming out, we're thinking about making limited back to 2,000. Then we have a fourth one coming out eventually that's we plan on doing with a big factory that probably going from 2 to maybe 10,000. You know what I'm saying? So it's still limited because it's from a different factory every time. It's a certain amount of tobacco.
So when you
that becomes like our yearly cigar now, besides the core line.
When you use through your tobacco, do you frantically? I guess let me ask it this way: when you're looking for tobacco, are you 12 months? 2 years in front of that release typically when you're first viewing that tobacco, because it's obviously then got to get rolled, aged a little bit, and everything else. Like when you're
we try to buy aged. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just curious as to how far ahead are you planning the limited editions?
A year.
Okay.
About a year, because whatever I remember Terrence told me this and I agree with him. Whatever can go wrong in the tobacco industry does go wrong, right? Getting things ready in time. Especially in those kind of countries. And nothing against those countries. I love those countries. But I'm saying that crazy stuff happens, right? So
Sure.
We try to plan about a year ahead. I'll give you an example. Art of Magic 2 we had out at TPE. We had a magician actually at the booth. It was a great time. In 2020, I think it was. I'm not sure. But anyway, it came out. It was supposed to come out in June, July. It took a little longer because things happen. Especially during COVID with all the bottlenecks and the supply restraints. So you always have to have plan B. You got to run it like a business and have plan B, C ahead of it.
So what was COVID like for Rockefeller Cigars?
So since I like to be on the road, I'm in my car now. I was losing my mind.
And that had to be terrible.
I was sitting on my driveway in Long Island on herf after herf after herf. And what we were doing is we were reaching out to retailers, certain retailers that I couldn't go out and see, and sending cigars and setting up smoke dates on the Zoom. So we were thinking out of the box. We did some great herfs and stores which were open together. Some herfs were good, some were not. Some of them were good, some of them are not. But a herf is a herf, man. You have people on the phone, you have people there. I mean, that really helped me out a lot. I love that interaction of people. So not being on the road for me was tough.
Yeah, I'm sure. No, it's somebody that grew up with windshield time in front of them for their younger part of their career. I miss it too. There's something about being on the road. There's something actually when people tell you, "Oh, you drive everywhere." I don't think they understand how people like you and I operate in our car. That's a kind of like our sanctuary. You get angry in the car. You get happy in the car, you close deals in the car. But what I always loved was shutting that car door allowed me to turn that switch off and dedicate that to my family. So when I was at home, not driving an hour, hour and a half north to work every day, I couldn't turn work off. It was a really hard thing to do because I was literally walking past my office every time I went to the bathroom at 8 o'clock at night. All I wanted to do was go, I need to do stuff. I need to do stuff. So like right now I have like an outdoor office lounge, which is what you see me in now.
That's
And
awesome.
I'm able to shut that door and it operates kind of as my car. So how difficult was that for you to continue in maintaining relationships
So I
through the
went to a
phone?
couple of places. We tried giving brick and mortars certain deals, you know what I mean? And I went to a couple of places, and then I got in the car and I was like, you know what? I'm driving to TPE. I remember that. I ended up in Chicago in 14 hours or 12 hours. Next thing I know, I'm in Chicago. I remember telling my wife, well, I'll be back in an hour. I actually had plane reservations for Sunday, and I said, I'll be back in an hour. Next thing I know, I'm in Chicago. Then ended up in Nebraska at a great store, Cigars. And they had one room left in the hotel, and I hung out there, just chilled out, smoked a cigar, heard about a great podcast that the guy Aaron, and I forgot the other guy's name who did it. So then I took that, listened to the podcast. I drove all the way down to Grand Junction. We sold cigars to Rems because I had lounges all the way down. So we sell to Rems in Grand Junction. Great people over there. I don't know if you know it. And then the drive, because I never did it, the drive from Grand Junction to Vegas was what a drive. Going through Bryce Canyon up to the mountain. Oh my God.
Oh
I
yeah.
loved it.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
so happy I did it.
Oh yeah.
But then the
No,
problem
that is
was after
gorgeous.
Vegas, I'm like, fuck, I got to drive back. So it took me 20 days to drive back because I hit every store on the way back.
so
I
so
loved
let
it.
me that's where like most people don't like. I would drive from Denver to Bloomington Normal in Illinois, where my parents
Yeah.
live, is a 15-hour drive. I'd take it straight through. I'd leave at 3 a.m. I'd be there by 5 in the afternoon, 6 at night. People are like, "You're crazy." I don't even realize that it was that long. I'm just so used to being in a car.
Yeah.
And
Me too. Me
and
too. Everyone's
it's
like,
quick.
2 hours? What? That's like, I do that in a sec. You know what I mean? It's like, next thing I know, I'm already on 5 hours.
I know, and it's something that I'm a terrible passenger, by the way. Like I am the worst passenger ever. I have to drive myself, but I am very curious. How did your sales style change as far as your approach to getting yourself inside a lounge or a humidor? Kind of pre you owning it 100% to after.
So say that again. Tell me that
How
question
did
again.
how did your sales approach change pre you owning 100% versus after?
Because I didn't really go to any of the stores when I didn't own 100% of it.
Okay.
And when I go into a store, I don't try to bag the guy with 25 boxes of cigars, one and done, right? I try to see the forest through the trees. I'd rather he buys 4 or 5 and then keeps buying 4 or 5 and build a relationship. To me, it was just like Wall Street. It's all about relationships.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I
No,
look
I
at it. It's a relationship business. There's no other way to put it.
so when you walk into a lounge that doesn't have Rockefeller, are you like incognito scoping out what everyone's smoking, trying to
So
ask
that's funny.
questions?
So that's funny you said that. The other day I walked into a lounge and I really wanted to be incognito. I was having a stressed out day. I just wanted to sit and smoke. That's it. I didn't even want to push my brand, nothing. I just wanted to go in there and smoke. And then the guy offers me a glass of wine. He has this rare wine he wants to give me. I'm like, you know what? I got to give him something. So I went in the car and got 2 cigars. I said, this is for you. I'm not drinking because, one, I get gout and I don't want to fuck with that because we were talking.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So that's one reason. Anyway, so next thing you know, I have a relationship with the guy, and he's like, bring in a bundle, we'll try him out. You know what I mean? I don't try to bang anyone over the head. I don't try to do that.
Now, when you walk into a lounge, do you ever say this is not a Rockefeller Lounge?
Yes.
And what
But in
what
my heart of hearts, I
constitutes?
try to change non-boutique lounges into boutique lounges.
Explain a little bit what you mean by that.
So there are some lounges out there that are strictly old school brands, right? That have no boutiques. And I try to explain when I get in there why it's important to have boutiques. Because it's up and coming, it's because it's a change of the business. And we sit down, we talk and smoke, and it's great. There's been situations where the guy's like, well, I don't have shelf space. I'm like, okay, but if you like this cigar, if you had the shelf space, you would take it, right? Yeah, why not? So we have this cigar called the Short Pyramid Dominican Blue. Wonderful cigar. Anyone who smoked it will tell you that. It's a terrific cigar. It's probably a 4.5 by 5 by 51. So back in the day, I had little glass humidors in my car.
Yeah.
So when they said they had no shelf space, I'd walk in. I go, here's a little glass humidor on top of point and sales with these cigars. Now you have shelf space. The guy was hysterical and loved it, laughed and said, I can't say no to that.
You know that actually reminds me of one of my mentors in sales. I am somebody that firmly believes in having mentors, both
Me too.
personally
I'm with you.
and professionally. And one of the things that I was actually around when he was telling this story, fortunately, so I got to hear it firsthand. But he said that he had tried to get through to this company and get into the door for well over a year. Then he went out and bought a mannequin foot.
A
Just the
what?
foot.
Mannequin?
A
Yeah.
mannequin foot. Boxed it up with a nice note and shipped it to the person. And the note said, now that my foot is in the door, can we schedule a meeting? The guy was so blown away by that approach, he ended up getting the deal. But it's that type of out of the box thinking that sets a company like yours apart when you do
Well,
stuff like that.
well, that's like old school cold calling, right? You
Yeah.
call up, you try to get the CEO on the phone, and they wouldn't put him on. They wouldn't put it on, and finally they put him on. And the guy's like, "How can I help you?" And I'm like, "Oh, you tell me you just want to thank you, right?" So he picks up the phone and goes, "I just want to thank you for taking my call, right?" So I want to thank the guy. I want to thank the guy. He picks up the phone. I want to thank you for taking my call.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, and you know that's there's another story of that goes through where it's like uh, a young, in the way the story goes that we were taught in insurance when I used to sell insurance, is a young kid sitting by the door, uh, boss or another company's manager, CEO looks at the kid and it's like, can I help you? Oh no, just wanted to admire you. And so he's like, okay. So he's sitting there, and a few more minutes go by, and he goes, boy, I just love watching successful people. Could I sit and ask you a few questions?
Right.
Sure. Hey, so how did you become you? And then next thing you know, it steamrolls into your pitch. But again, it's somebody that's done a shit ton of cold calling. It's always the person that can come in kind of incognito, like you said. Hey, I just want to thank them. I just want to do something for them before I ever ask for them anything from them. And I always typically take the approach of, it's not a sales call. I'm not asking to sell a dang thing. I just would like to speak and say hi. And
Well, so
typically
I'll
that'll
tell you.
get through.
Here's a funny story. I think it was in Iowa. We went to go visit Invesco, and I'm sitting, and I'm wearing jeans, a shirt, and a blazer, right? So I'm sitting in the room, right? And this is really funny. And there's 5 other guys in there with suits, dressed to the max, and I just did this on a spur of the moment because I was in the area. I wanted to visit the guy, and the guy invites me in. It's up to me. He invites me in, and he goes, why should I talk to you, especially the way you're dressed? I said, you know what? Because I'm not another empty suit. That's what I said to the guy. The guy fucking smiled and laughed so hard. We sat in that room for an hour and a half and we got the business.
Absolutely. And it's stuff like that that really sets apart people because
Yeah, and they remember it.
you understand. Yes. And they might not remember your name, but they will remember your face and they will go, I remember when you did X.
And how
And
crazy is that fucking guy, right?
yeah, right. Absolutely. So let's take a few questions here. First off, we both have a good friend of the show and a good friend of yours, I know, Shirtless Mike, who says hello.
Hey,
Um,
Mikey.
and then we have Barry, who asks, Kevin, is there a filler shortage? And if it's true, how do you stay ahead of something like that?
By having a lot of production, by having a lot of tobacco out of it. And as far as I know, there's no filler shortage. At least for us, there isn't.
Okay. Is there any shortages that you do know of because of factories being shut down that the cigar industry still? I'm not talking about boxes because I know that was a big deal for a while.
No, you're talking about actual tobacco.
Actual product.
I mean, at times, Pennsylvania broadleaf, there are shortages. But now I think it's opening up a little more than it was.
So let's see here. We have, nice comment from Eric, good friend of the show. What's up, gents? Y'all making this evening flows smoother, especially for us able to watch at work. Well, great. I love hearing when people watch this show at work because it's just fun, fun banter back and forth that kind of just makes your night go a little faster. So
yeah, it's a great show.
So when you're going through and you are going to different lounges, I want to ask you something that was brought up to me by a lounge owner that I was having a really kind of a deep conversation with, and I asked him, "What's the most expensive space in the humidor?" Meaning, what's the most expensive territory in a humidor? And he says, "Nothing in a lounge humidor." He said the most expensive space in a humidor is your home humidor. He says
Is your what? Your home?
the home humidor. He
Right.
goes, that is the space that retailers care about more than necessarily their own, which is why they pull product and move that. Do you agree with that statement? And I guess what he was getting at was it doesn't matter what I carry, it only matters what is bought. And the space is much more coveted in a home humidor where somebody might only have 5 cigar box, 25, 100. So when you're selling a cigar, are you thinking about that home humidor space, or are you thinking more about the lounge space and just getting in there? Does that
I'm
make
thinking about
sense?
both. I'm thinking about both.
So what is your
Mostly more the lounge space, but what he says makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, because we were talking about, why some brands, without naming any brand specifically, there were some brands that he had on clearance that I know are big brands. And I'm just like, why? And that's when we were kind of talking. That's why he said, because your home humidor is the most expensive space and people only have so much room for so much stuff.
Right.
So when you're making cigars, do you put your box sizes and counts to accommodate a home humidor a little bit better versus like having a 20 count or 30 count box?
So our boxes are pretty simple, right? It's either a 10 count or a 20 count box. Maybe we'll do a limited with a 13 count box or something, but it pretty much boxes perfectly in the humidor.
So when you're doing blending, first off, would you consider yourself a roller, or do you roll yourself?
I have rolled in Nicaragua, but no, but I consider myself a blender.
Okay, so when you're blending, are you blending to what you like, or are you also kind of putting out what you think others may like? Meaning, do you instill
No, I got it.
Yeah.
So the Dominican Blue was a perfect example. I love the Corojo, but I thought it was way too strong and way too harsh for most of the cigar people out in the community and the consumers. That's when I put the Connecticut broadleaf in, so it brought a broader horizon of people.
And when you're doing stuff like that, who are you making that decision? Do you have like a group of friends that you rely on, other industry people to
So
test your
actually,
blends?
actually, I do. So I have a couple of samplers out there in the business, right? Harry from Harry's Abandoned is one. Vince, who's at Sun Cigar Lounge, is another one. James from Huntington Humidor is one, and various other people that I trust with their palate tremendously. And I actually let them smoke them with me. In fact, our
Okay.
social media girl, a woman, I should say, lady, Allison, has a very good palate, and I respect her opinion tremendously.
So what are you looking for when you're blending? Like are you looking for and what I mean by that is Rockefeller, does it have a specific profile? And I only ask this because you take a company like Espinosa.
Right,
You know you're gonna have a punch to the nose and a hot, most likely peppery cigar. So do you
right.
guys have as like more or less a profile, or do you just blend to what you like in that sense and not necessarily follow a specific tasting profile?
And we don't follow Pacific tasting profile, but we do use the Viso a lot, which is the high cut Seiko above the Seiko. We
Yep.
use the Viso a lot, and we have some new stuff coming out that's going to be a bank that's pretty strong, which is going away from where we usually are. But I've been requested by a lot of people, and I kind of interview people and ask them what they want. And now, maybe it was one or two states, but now it's becoming a lot more states. So we're going to have one of those bang punch cigars that you're going to know you're smoking it, but it's not so much it's the nicotine. Maybe it's more the Lajero inside the cigar.
Now, is that a normal profile for you to gravitate to? Are you a high horsepower smoker? Are you more medium, medium plus, medium minus?
So now I'm more of a Habano smoker. I love smoking Habanos all day long. I do smoke San Andreas. I do smoke Maduro. I do smoke Pennsylvania broadleaf, which I love. So I guess I'm more of a medium to full smoker, but there are times I could become a very full smoker. In fact, Harry always says to me, he goes, "Your palate's shot." That's not even because he thinks it's strong and it's not strong for me. So yeah, that does happen from time to time.
You know, it's
Like I
funny that
love
you.
I love Skip's Neanderthal.
Okay,
It's
I mean
got a
that's a
lot of
great
punch to it.
cigar.
Great cigar, and I smoke it a lot, and I love it. So
Yeah, I
there's a perfect example of a strong cigar.
absolutely. I was a cigarette smoker for 20 years, so nicotine doesn't hit me the way it does others. So it's actually funny because I've had a really good buddy of mine give me a cigar that's an avid cigar smoker. And he goes, dude, make sure you eat like a massive meal on this stick.
Right.
And I smoked it in the morning with a cup of coffee with some bacon and eggs, and it didn't affect me. And I called him and I was like, dude, that was a medium at best. So
I love
why?
a I love a Maduro in the morning with a cup of coffee.
Oh my gosh, I love it all. Yeah, I totally agree with you. I'll smoke anything any time of the day. Um, but why do you? What in a cigar do you feel? I guess that's part of the experience of it, though, right? Is one person can have one experience, one person can have another with the exact same cigar. Is that something that is worked for inside the blend? Like how is that taken when somebody looks at you and goes, "Oh man, that one kicked my ass," and the next guy next to you goes, "Oh, that was actually more of a medium for me." Like, do you then go back and go, "I'm trying to get that more consistent," or I guess you really can't, right? Because it's just
You
what your
really can.
palate
Everyone's got a
is.
different palate. Everybody out there's got a different palate. And I always say the cigar's the one you like, right? I mean, you
So
can't
I do,
really. I mean, like I was a big Illusion fan for years, right? I smoked his Epernay, his Maduro Ultra, his original
sure.
MJ12 for years, and the Epernay I still love. I smoke it a lot. Whenever I see it, I smoke it. But for the most part, and that came out of racist back in the day. And for the most part, It's not really all the time my palate anymore as it used to be. So palates change all the time.
And yeah, I'm realizing that with my wife right now. My wife and I smoke a couple cigars a week. Obviously, not this week, but my wife and I mean, I smoke every day, but my wife will have a couple cigars, and I'm noticing that her palate is coming more into a little bit heavier and heavier and heavier stick. Do you
Right.
believe that I've heard this said amongst people, and for somebody that's smoked as long as you have, I'm curious to know when you started, were you mild, now strong, and then do you gravitate sometimes back towards mild, or have you stayed in that strong category?
So like I said, I smoked all those 858 Maduros from Fuente back then. I think I stayed. I'm consistent medium.
Okay.
That's my go-to. I'm consistent
Are,
medium.
are you a Connecticut guy, like a big Connecticut guy?
So I love our Connecticut. Again, with a cup of coffee, I love our Connecticut.
Sure.
There are certain Connecticut's I would smoke though. Yes. There's a guy out there. I'm sure you probably know him, Kendall from Outlaw,
Hmm.
who has a great Connecticut. I think it was made by either AJ Raganosa with Lancero in it that I love. So it's got that Connecticut flavor with a punch to it that I absolutely. It's called Gunslinger. I absolutely love that cigar.
I know that. I know that
In fact,
stick. I
every
know
time
that
Allison
stick.
goes to Redlands, I tell him to get it for me.
So, how do you blend your Connecticut's to keep that bitter Connecticut away?
So we use Ecuadorian Connecticut. Like I said, we use a
Okay.
Sumatra Binder because of the consistent burn.
Hmm.
And then we mix it up with not a lot, small percentages. The Ometepe is a very small percentage we use in the leaf as a filler. You don't want to use too much Ometepe, in my opinion. I mean, what other people do, they do. But for me, that's what I like. And then the Esteli with it gives it a little bit of spice, and the jalapa gives it a little bit of a kick. But it's Viso, it's not Lajero, so it's not going to knock your ass off as soon as you wake up.
Sure.
I mean,
No,
I can
that
make that Connecticut stronger very easily. But it's got a nice, smooth, non-bitter taste. A lot of guys who smoke Ashton like our Connecticut's because of the price point.
absolutely. You guys have a great price point. You really do. So we have a question here from Cody, very, very long time follower of the show. How is blending done? And then he goes on to say, is it smelling the leaves and then smoking the blend in stages, or is he way off?
Smelling the leaves, no. So what we do is when we get down there, I kind of give him an idea of what I want, and then he'll make me cigars to taste, and I smoke them. Right, he takes it right out of the pilon, so it's aged tobacco already. Pilon is where they age the tobacco, and it sits in a high degree temperature. And we smoke. We go back and forth, back and forth. I'm going to Nicaragua in July. I can't wait. And we go back and forth, and smoke, back and forth, and smoke. And then I tell him, you know what? It needs a little more oomph to it. So then he goes back and makes something else, and I try to smoke it, and that's how we come up with the blends. He's the one who knows the percentages, not me. It's like a cook who's been
Sure.
doing it for a long time. He knows exactly what to put in the sauce or the gravy, however you want to say it.
Absolutely. So then when you're doing the testing, are you rolling single leaf fumas and smoking the
Yes,
single leaf
yes,
fumas
we're
and like
actually
wrapping them together?
100%. So what happens is when I first went down there, I had no idea. My palate was nothing like it is now. Like I can pick up a cigar now and know because what happens is those tastes get compartmentized in your head. So when you pick up a cigar, it pops out. So jalapa to me pops out immediately now, right? Habano, Ecuadorian Habano usually pops out to me now too. But there's so much more to learn. You're constantly learning. Anyone who tells you they know everything's out of their mind. It's amazing. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. It's a wonderful experience.
Well, usually my when somebody tells me they know everything about a certain thing, my response is, then why are you still doing that certain thing? Because
Right,
life
exactly.
becomes boring if you're not
Right.
willing to continue to
When you can
learn.
write the book, forget about it.
um so
Like
then
I
what
sat
is
I sat with Rocha Rabina one day. We were outside. We went for dinner at Parkside with Harry, and we were sitting outside in Spaghetti Park. And I was talking to this guy for an hour and a half, And I found out the guy's a farmer, and he was teaching me all this stuff that I had no clue about, but it was so amazing to learn. And it was such another area that I didn't know about that was so interesting to me.
So when you going to what you just said, if you're going to be a brand owner, how much of being a brand owner is learning versus selling the cigar? Does that make sense? Meaning,
I mean,
how much
when
of
you
it is
come out with a
learning?
good brand, when you come out with a good blend and a good brand, I think that's most of it, because the cigar's got to sell itself. Once you hand that cigar to an owner of a store, he's got to like that cigar and get behind it. Otherwise, you're wasting your time. And you got to
But
believe in the brand.
do you believe it's important for brand owners to know a lot about their blend, a lot about the tobacco that they're using, or
Absolutely.
not so much? Yeah, okay.
No,
So
absolutely.
so if you have a brand owner that doesn't take that time, do you know automatically most likely that that brand won't be around versus the ones that take the time to study what they need?
Yes. Yes.
So if you were consulting a new brand owner, what would be top 3 things that you
First
would
thing would
tell
be to
them
spend a lot
advice?
of time with your blender and go through all the different leaves and learn. That would be the first thing. The second thing would be to have inventory. And the third thing would be out on the road.
So how many shops are you in right now? A
Probably
guesstimation.
about 180, 200.
Is your goal to be in every shop, or do you believe that if you do hit every shop, you could actually kind of maybe lose control of that
No, my goal
quality
is not to be
you're
in
trying to
every
fill?
single shop. No.
Okay.
I have
So
certain
then,
shops I love out there that, go ahead.
so then, at what point in time do you feel a brand can get too big for its britches and they start losing quality control too fast?
That's a good question. Maybe 500 stores.
Okay. 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 Now, why 500? Is it just because that's usually what a brand owner can accommodate?
I think because, it's a turn, right? And you have to have a lot of product, right? And you have to accommodate and be there and give them the love and quality they need as a brand owner. And when it gets too dispersed, I don't think you're able to do that. Hence why you have distributors that sell the brand for you. But even when that happens, and again, look, you can't be everywhere, right? But
Sure. Sure.
even when that happens, you lose a little love.
Yeah, you do.
And I
Absolutely.
think that love is important. I think the relationship suffers when you get over a certain amount. That's
So
my gut.
so
We're not there yet, but we will be there.
is Rockefeller's end game in all of this to eventually own your own farms? Is that something in the future to go
So
vertically
I've
integrated?
toyed about owning my own factory for a while. I've toyed about that, or having somebody down in Nicaragua who could run a factory. Um, it has been one of the things I've thought of. I've wanted to do, or go partners into a factory with somebody down there. I haven't done it yet, but I have toyed with the idea.
Obviously, that's a huge expense because now you're forecasting when you start doing your own factory, you're forecasting 5, 6, 7 years down the road.
Right.
So, how much when you first got into Rockefeller? There's like you hear Abe DeBabna say, the cigar world has a lot of investment money into it, tied up into sticks that you might not sell for X amount of years or a year. So, what kind of concern was that when you bought Rockefeller out? That obviously now you're on the hook for 100% of it. are you starting to like map that out financially? Are you starting to pull that money back in and restructure that? Like, kind of, what does that future look like?
So you come to a point of organic growth, any business does, where a certain amount where you need probably an investor to come in with you, right? Or you can use all your own money, whatever. But or you can get an investor. And the interesting thing about tobacco, hence why Altria, British Tobacco, all these big tobacco companies pay such a big dividend is because, like I said, it's liquid gold. You can roll tobacco. So it's easy to get an investor for tobacco because you can roll it and still keep 35% and pay 15% to an investor every quarter. Now, that guy's making 60% now on his money. He doesn't own any of the company, but he gets a high preferred payout. There's
Okay.
a lot of guys that I know from my Wall Street days that would be interested in doing that. If I went that direction. If I went that direction.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're talking about more or less sitting back and taking easy money as an investor at that point.
Other people's money, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So here's a quick question here. It says, and this is an aging question. I also want to get your opinion on if you feel your cigars should be aged or if they're exactly perfect. But let's get to the question real first. It said, when throwing a new
Good.
box of sticks in your personal humidor, is it necessary to open the box if you're going to let your cigars rest for a year, let's say? Now, I think what he's talking about is taking the plastic off of the box. I don't know if he means absolutely taking the lid off, but what's your hard and fast rule on aging? And then talk about if you like your cigars to be aged.
So I collect cigars besides my own company. I've been doing that for
Okay.
years, right? A lot of them are still in the same cellophane. A lot of them are opened. What I like to do sometimes is so some cigars you get are very humid, they're squishy, they're too humid. So I like to dry box them sometimes to get some of that moisture
Okay.
out. And then after they're dry boxed, I put them away and keep them saved. That works for me a lot. Now I feel there's a certain maybe 8 years is a good time to age a cigar. After 8 years, I had this conversation with Boston Jimmy once in his garage, in his lounge, and after 8 years, I think the cigar starts to lose it, right? So obviously, the more you age it, the more flavor you get. The strength goes away, and it's all flavor of the leaf. And I think 8 years is a good pivot point.
So if somebody was to ask you, hey Kev, I've been aging this blend of Rockefeller for X amount of years, are you do you say, oh, that's great, you should smoke it now, or do you tell people that's great that you age it, but when I put a cigar on the shelf, it's ready to go as I want you to have it?
Right. So none of our cigars, and you could ask people, when they take it out of the cellophane, they're good to go. No bitterness, no heat on the end of the stick. We want them from seed to cellophane, so when you open it up, it's ready to smoke. Now, I opened up a box, I want to say about 3 months ago, of 6-year-old 7x48 Churchills that were phenomenal. No strength, though. They lost a lot of strength. But the flavor of the leaf was incredible. That Viso flavor came out. Oh, my God. It was like candy. I
Now
loved it.
you had said that you're a collector, so let's touch on that really quick because I always love asking cigar collectors, what is your biggest white whale that you have chased and bought?
So, a lot of the old skinny monsters from Tatawai,
Okay.
the MBS is from Tatawai. I like Pete Johnson cigars a lot.
Who
I've
doesn't?
collected old Dom Pepin original blues, old Padrones, old stuff from Carlito, a lot of old Illusiones. That's
What
what I've
is the
collected.
what's the most expensive box? And part two to that question is, are you using like auction houses to find really old boxes in
No, so I
people's
love.
humidors?
So no, I'll give you an example. So I was in Delaware Cigars that's got Zuccarones in Delaware, and I went. It's like a library in the back, and I found all these old San Latanos from AJ, these Lanceros, like $4.95 a stick. I bought 3 boxes.
Oh,
You know
I
what I
would
mean?
totally do that. Yeah.
Aganorsa came out with Supreme Leaf. One store, there were, I think it was the Lance. I forgot what size it was. I bought all those boxes because it's a great cigar. So
So
certain cigars, it's kind of like base cards, right? Rookie baseball cards.
sure. So you're not going after the cigars that are like from the 60s and 70s that people have unopened boxes of
No,
Cubans
if
that
I
they're
found some
selling them for.
pre-Castro Cubans, I don't know if they'd be any good to smoke.
Okay. They would just lose most of everything at that point.
Right. It's like a wine, right? How long can a wine sit before it's not as good as, Yeah.
So you are a firm believer that a cigar can be aged, hit that curve, and then come down and now
Yes.
lose out. And it's the
Yes.
art of aging is finding that bell curve to smoke it at the top.
Yeah, which is a very tough thing to find, but yes.
So then if
Before that bell
somebody is
curve turns south, yes.
so if somebody is trying to age one of your cigars and they're just dead set on doing it, what's
8
the
years.
advice you give them based on that blend? Would you say I would smoke that in 5 years if you want to? I would smoke that no later than 2 years. What is your
No,
normal
I would
advice
go
for
to
that?
6 to 8 years.
On all your stuff. Beyond 8 years, you're losing out on how you wanted it to be.
That's what I think, yes.
Now, what about drinks? Now, what is like a favorite pairing of yours to
So,
go with a
so,
cigar?
okay, so our Maduro, I think any Buffalo Trace Eagle Rare would go really nice with the Maduro. With our Dominican Blue, I would go with, what the hell's that? Brugal, the Dominican Brugal. I would go with a Four Roses. Those things I think like a Buffalo Trace though is amazing with the Maduro cigar.
So you're a bourbon guy.
For that with that cigar, yeah, it would be a
Yeah.
bourbon.
Now you're Italian, right?
No,
No, you're not. Okay. Sorry. New York, I'm just used to Italians and
everybody
there's
thinks I'm
my
Italian. It's okay.
there I
I
was
get it
about
all
to
the time.
I was about to your accent just goes so well with saying sausage and peppers, right?
Yeah,
Uh
so true.
are you a wine guy or do your cigars go with like a good red wine or a white wine?
So white wine would go good with the Connecticut, I think. A red wine would probably go great with the Maduro and the Habano.
Okay.
It would probably
Uh,
depend on from what valley, but yeah.
so Cody asks another great question. How do you go? This is back to when you and I were talking about potentially you've looked into getting a factory. He says, how does one go about finding someone to do your blending and manufacturing your cigar? And I would like to add a part two. How does one go about finding a person to run a manufacturing plant?
So the only way I could do that is by living in like Jonathan Drew did, lived in Nicaragua for a while,
Mm-hmm.
or Skip, or James Brown. You'd have to in my opinion, you have to be in the zone. You have to be there. You have to learn the whole business. You have to meet all the people. You can't just say, "Hey, I'm gonna go buy a factory. Let's do it." That would be stupidity, and you would crash and burn in 2 minutes.
Okay.
You'd have to have a good tobacco buyer with you, someone who knows what the hell they're doing. Because I
Is
don't know the
there
first thing about I don't know the first thing about buying tobacco. I know what tobacco costs, but I guess I would deal with it, negotiate like I was in New York, right? So
sure?
it's like
Yeah, at that point.
right.
So
So I would have
what?
to have. So it's like an A team. I would have to have a guy who can build tobacco, who can buy tobacco. I would have to have an incredible master blender who I trusted, and I would have to have the factory built up the specifications for now.
So then, how does one go about finding a tobacco buyer? And what is the difference between A tobacco buyer and B tobacco buyer? Doesn't everybody have the same access to the tobacco?
No. I think, again, it's built on relationship and trust. If I go walk into Nicaragua to a tobacco field and then speak to somebody, or somebody who's been doing it for 5 to 10 years and has the experience, he's going to have a better situation in buying the right tobacco over me. I've learned about what tobacco to buy, what primings the leaf should come from, but I would definitely default to somebody else to do that.
Okay.
Now, 3 years from now, if I know way more, then maybe I wouldn't.
So I want to kind of ask you really quick, because we both talked about how we have mentors and that we believe in mentors. So who would be a mentor for you now in the cigar industry? And has that mentor, the amount of mentors in the beginning, changed versus now?
That's a good question. You mean a mentor who I've looked up to?
Yes. So one that you've relied on, but now as you've gotten bigger, maybe that mentor is not the right mentor to give you the advice to take you to the next level. So at what point in time do you have to mentally say,
Harry's a good mentor when it comes to what he knows about tobacco. He was one of them, for sure. I'd have to think about it before I come up with other names.
Sure. And why do you feel having a mentor in any industry that you do is so valuable?
One,
I get
because you
asked
don't
this
know
question
everything.
all the time.
Because you don't know everything, and they have the more experience than you, and they've done it before, and they've made the mistakes that hopefully you won't make.
So then, do
How's
you
that for an
have?
answer?
That's fantastic, and I believe the same thing. I get people ask me like, why do you? I have about 8 to 10 people in my life that I would consider mentors. I have life mentors that are outside of business, and then I have business mentors as well. I do believe that some people are better for personal mentorship and growing yourself versus maybe that person wouldn't be so good for the business.
I
So,
agree with you. I lost one about 4 years ago who was a tremendous mentor to me. He died. He was about 86 years old, 87 years old, and that took me for a loop when he was gone. And he was
that's
in the gold.
hard.
I was a gold trader, and he was a Lehman commodities trader. And so I don't know if you know my past, but you probably looked on LinkedIn. But I did
Mm-hmm.
international gold sales in
Mm-hmm.
countries that you wouldn't dare go in. So dealing with the World Gold Council and some crazy shit. And this is a long time ago, but he was my mentor. So I would always reach out to him when I needed advice. But he would explain stuff to me that I didn't know. He would say, maybe you shouldn't do this. You should do it this way. And he had the experience, many, many years of experience. So I would listen to everything he'd say. It's almost like a think tank around you. I think it's very
Sure.
important, like I said, like if you don't know about buying tobacco, you don't know about doing certain things, you need a think tank of people around you that can help you. And if you don't ask for help and think you know everything, you're out of your mind. That's how I look at it. Right? You can't move a piano by yourself. You need help.
No, no, absolutely. And, just a little story that kind of encompasses one of my first situations in life where I realized that a mentor was a great thing in life. I have a very close friend of mine that I worked for him for insurance for a while. I went door to door. Now I look at door to door as like boot camp for sales, right? Because you get a broken nose
Right.
every door, and sometimes broken feet if they slam the door on your foot. And I went for probably 2 weeks trying to do it my own way because, right, I'm young, dumb, stupid, and I know better than anybody else, right? I'm 19, 20 years old, and I called them up after about 2 or 3 weeks. I quit. I can't do this. I said nothing is working. And he goes, well, are you doing this, and how are you approaching this? And I said, no, I'm doing it like this. I'm doing it the way that's always worked in any other job. And he goes, okay. And he just hung up on me. And I
Yeah,
called
hey,
him the
listen,
next, and I called him the next day. And I said, I'm done. I'm fucking done. Like, I'm not doing this anymore. And he hung up on me again. And I called him one day and I was like, listen, I'm being serious. I'm not making anything and I am broken. I'm done. He goes, okay, I'll see you at 8 o'clock in the morning tomorrow. You're ready. And I said, what the hell do you mean? He goes, well, you just had to realize that you don't know anything. I don't know
right?
everything, but I know more than you. So now that you've realized that, you're more open to doing it my way. And I think that's a mentorship approach right there, right?
Absolutely.
They let you
Yep.
fall to build you back up. So
Yep.
when you are doing sales, do you have like a sales mentor in the cigar world versus a blending mentor or a business mentor?
So again, because I'm older, so a lot of my mentors were older. A lot of them have passed, which is sad. But I had a sales mentor for many years on Wall Street, many years, and that's where I learned a lot of. I was always a guy who could sell, but that was where I learned a lot of stuff. Same situation like you.
So then I'm curious, how do you know when a right time is to bring a person? Because it's not like you have a discussion with this person, right? It's an
Right.
organic, it's not like you go, you're my mentor. It just kind of happens. It just kind of grows organically. Next thing you know, you're asking questions. And before you both know it, your relationship has changed into a much more profitable or even fruitful relationship all around. So, how do you know when a person is the right person for you to look up to or for you to want to get their advice?
Based on their experience and having conversations with them and realize they know a lot.
Would you base, because some people in sales, I know people in sales that are better at teaching people sales than they are making sales themselves
Right.
because
Me too.
they look at it different. So do you take that into account? Is like, well, your record's not that good, but you do give amazing
Yep.
advice.
I've had that situation.
So then as younger people are coming up in this industry, are you yourself making, because you've obviously benefited a lot from advice and help from people in your life. Is that something you look to try to be to some of the younger people in the industry or even some of your own salespeople?
Yes.
And why do you think that's important for a business owner to take that
Because I think a
approach?
lot of these companies, and again, no disrespect to any company, but I think a lot of these companies are not business, like they don't look at it almost from a total business standpoint. I mean, we had problems in Nicaragua. We were immediately in the DR. And yes, that came from discussions with a mentor of mine. There's your answer, right? So,
Sure.
he's like, a business is a business, period. Boom. So, like I said, I have a think tank around me. I have a guy who was top hedge fund manager, top fund manager at John Hancock, who knows the cap structure of every single company. Who's brilliant. Done deals with Icon. He's done deals. He restructured Northwest Airlines. He's done all these deals, right? He's a very, very good friend of mine and a very good mentor to me. And when there's a business situation, I get frustrated. I'm like, because everybody gets frustrated. It's part of it, right?
Sure.
You want to slam the phone down, whatever. I take a deep breath, and when you're anxious, you don't do anything. You just relax, smoke a cigar. And then I call him, and it's amazing. It's like a bright light goes on sometimes, and we think together about it, and he comes up with great answers.
Now, do you like having a relationship with somebody you look up to that is just no holds barred? They're going to give you the advice good for you, whether you like to hear it or not. Do you think that's
Yes.
important?
Yep.
Why is that
Absolutely.
important?
First of all, I mean, I have thick skin, so I don't care because they've lived it. That's why it's important. Again, most of my mentors are older than me, so they've lived it.
So I ask these questions because
No, I'm glad you are.
I'm one of those people
Your
that
show is differentiated from a lot of other shows. So yeah,
absolutely, because I take a much more, I try to, like I said, I've been in sales 20 years. I've sold cars to everything that you could think of under the sun, outside of commodities. And for me, if you don't have somebody in your life that can tell you you're being stupid and you don't get mad at them for being honest with you, I think that's pure growth. That's growth on you, because I think people's most, like when one of my very very close life mentors would call me up and go, "Hey, I heard you just did this. What the hell is wrong with you? Why did you do that?" Normally, I would just hang up, right? Most people would. But you almost feel like you can't on that person because you know that person's specifically out for your good, right?
yep, yep,
So you let them get away with calling you or being incredibly direct with you. Uh,
yes.
and you really do yearn for that after a certain point in time, to where like I've called up people and been like, "Hey, I just had a great this," and I've literally had them go, "Awesome. So what are you doing tomorrow?" Well, can't we talk about what I just did? No, because
Yeah, me
you've
too,
done
and
it.
it pisses me the fuck off.
I know. But so you have kids. Do you have children?
Yeah, I have a 10 and a 14-year-old.
So when you're bringing them up, are you positioning yourself in that line, or are
Well,
you
it's tough, right?
encouraging
Because you don't
them?
want, so you don't really want your son to be your friend. You got to still your
Mm-hmm.
father and son, right? But yeah, I try to teach my son a lot of things. He doesn't want to hear it, obviously, because he's young. He's in his teens.
And
But
he's always
you know,
right.
he's always right, and I was like that too, up into my 20s too. You know what I mean? I always thought I knew everything, and I didn't know everything. But you have to sometimes burn and crash to learn.
So what was
And
the event in your life that allowed you to burn and crash and allow yourself to build back up? Because that happens. There's always a key point in everybody's life where they realize they're not hot shit and other people know more than them, right? For
right,
me, it was going door to door. That's when I realized I need mentors if I'm going to be successful. So
so
it,
you really forget about my teens. We won't talk about that. But one thing that happened to me on Wall Street, I thought I knew everything about gold, and I got long gold futures, and thank God I didn't have a lot of money at the time, right? And I got my ass kicked, and I was literally on a train. I was literally on a train, fucking depressed as can be, and I didn't get it. I thought I was making money, boom, 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 boom. I was buying shit. I was trading commodities 4 o'clock in the morning, making money, and then one day, Jay Aaron, I'll never forget, gold was at 428, and gold collapsed. Because every time gold
oh,
got to 428, Jay Aaron was Goldman's commodity department, and it got destroyed. And I was like, holy shit. Like, I just realized what hit me. I didn't have a dime after that. I
oh,
lost it all. I thought I knew what I was doing. And I reached out to that mentor who passed away. And he's like, the first thing he said to me is, you don't have all your eggs in one basket. You know what I mean? He goes, you need to diversify. And I was like, fuck you. You know what I mean? I was like, you know how I feel right now? He goes, it doesn't matter. I'm telling you what you need to do. He was right. He was right. I was a stubborn 20-year-old, and he was right.
and that's hard as a person to
Swallow, yeah,
absorb.
man. Fuck yeah.
Very,
I
very
lost my mother
hard.
when I was 19, rest of soul. I didn't have any money. I was like, oh, fuck. You know what I mean? So it was like, yeah, I went to the restaurant business. Yeah, it was rough.
So moving
I got money
on.
back, and then I started. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Finish your thought.
No, I got money back, and then I started again, and I didn't do it that way. And I reached out to him constantly. What do I do? What do I do? You know what I mean? I don't want to make the same stupid fucking mistake. And then he became a mentor to me for a long time.
And those people are invaluable. I have a life mentor of mine that I call my tiny Italian. He's a Marine Corps, 5'6", and I don't care how old I am. I was 18 or 20, and I went to
Right.
square up with him, like to wrestle. And he goes, "About to teach you another life lesson, buddy." and he wrapped me up like something fierce and put me down. But yeah, no, he married my wife and I. Very, very, very close friend.
Very
I've
nice.
known the guy since I was 7 years old. And when you know somebody that long, like I do feel that a lot of people try to cheat themselves out by what they tell themselves, especially in sales. Oh, I did good last month. I can kind of ease off the gas this month. And when you have somebody that knows you literally to your core, they will call that out. And I think that's a very valuable thing to have.
Yes.
So getting on to what makes Kevin Gold Kevin Gold, what I want to do is ask you, what is your life like when you're not in cigars? When you're sitting on a beach, what does Kevin do to relax when he's not racing around?
So I used to play guitar. So I love music.
Okay.
Love music. I used to have long hair, play guitar. It was a band when I was in the 80s. I loved it. You know what I mean? So
Oh,
I love
really?
guitar. Yes. We played heavy metal. We played rock and roll. Yep. Yeah, I
Well,
loved it.
if I would have known that, I would have done my due diligence and tried to find a clip of that band. I'm sure there's a video somewhere, right?
No,
Of
there's not.
Kevin.
Thank God. Thank God there's no video.
What was the name of the band?
There were no Renegade. There were no cell phones back then, so there were no videos. Thank God. Because that would come back to haunt me.
So, do you still play guitar?
Yeah, lately I've been picking it up more and more.
What do you like to play? Classical, jazz? What do you like to
I
play?
love jazz. I love lead guitar. I played lead guitar, so I love jazz. I love playing riffs over the music sometimes.
I was a trumpet. I played trumpet for 9 years. I picked it up because there was a hot chick that I wanted to sit next to that was third chair flute and third chair trumpet. Third chair
Made
trumpet.
me think of something. Yeah.
Well, you're gonna laugh your ass off on this from my naivete. I was in 6th grade, and third chair trumpet, which there was only 3 trumpets in the band. I went to a small Christian school. Same 12 kids from 6th grade to 8th grade. And I sat next, I was third chair because I wanted to sit next to her. But I also looked at the saxophone and everything else. And with trumpet's got to be easy. It's only 3 notes. It's 3 keys. Oh, was I wrong?
Yeah, you were way wrong.
So wrong. But I developed a passion for it and a love for it. I haven't picked it up or played in well over a decade. But so what else does Kevin do to unwind? Do you fish? Do you hunt? You're a gun guy. You probably go out and shoot.
Yeah, I do like to shoot. That unwinds me a lot. I don't have my guns though. They're on the pod somewhere in New York until we find a house. But yeah, I do like to do that. I used to love to fish. I haven't fished in a long time. We used to go off the shelf in Montauk and rent Canyon Runner. That was years ago. I like to spend time with my kids.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I
So
really enjoy spending time with my kids.
if I was to ask you what a perfect weekend for you would be, if you didn't have to involve selling cigars, what would that encompass?
Sitting on a beach in the Caribbean island, relaxing, doing nothing, listening to music, smoking cigars.
That sounds like a great freaking time. I tell you what. What's some of your? Are you a reader? Do you read a lot?
I don't read as much as I used to. I used to read a lot of history books. I'm very fascinated with history. So I did a lot of magic. So I read a lot of magic books. Always want to learn magic.
Now I want to.
But you made me think.
That.
I just got to tell you
Go
something.
Ahead. Go ahead.
Made me think of a story. When I was younger, I was really into martial arts, and I thought I had the biggest Bruce Lee collection in the world. But the reason why I got into martial arts because I was in a movie with this girl, and she's like, "Oh, I love Karate Man." So it's like, "Oh shit, I better be getting the martial arts." So that's what that just reminded me of when you said that.
What we don't do as men to chase women when we're young.
It's unbelievable.
So you had
I
mentioned
like old
Matt.
gangster movie. I like old gangster movies. I love watching movies. I grew up with that that kind of life. So
Oh yeah, Ray Liotta just lost him. God bless
I
his
know it's
soul.
sad.
Goodfellas is my wife and I's all-time favorite movie, to the point where it could be halfway through and we see it on TV and it just gravitates to that movie and it just stays on.
I
And
like Godfather.
oh, so you're Godfather. So then let me ask you this then. So you're a Godfather guy. What'd you think of Godfather 3?
I liked it.
Did you think it added anything more than Godfather that actually made Godfather 1 and 2 better?
I don't think it did that, but it talked about the Vatican more and Immobiliare, all the money behind the Vatican, and it brought Italy into it more, which I really enjoyed. I've been to Italy many times, my favorite country, and I really, really enjoyed how they brought it all in, how the big banks supported the Vatican and everything. I thought that was very cool.
Yeah, I love the Godfather series. I do think. Have you seen that mishmash of like all the movies in one? It's like 4 hours, five
Yeah,
hours
late night.
long.
Yeah, yep.
Oh man, I think they did that so well. Uh, that's definitely
A lot,
one of my favorites.
a lot of people don't like Godfather 3, but I do.
I am not a fan because I thought there was just too much time between 2 and 3.
Good point.
I thought it lost some of its pizzazz between 2 and 3 because Pacino is, I mean, he's a god.
One of
He's
my favorite
Pacino, right?
actors.
Oh, for sure. Heat, De Niro and Pacino in the same
Oh, that
movie. I
was
mean, it
great.
just
Right. And one's
doesn't get
cop and
better.
one's yep. I like Johnny Depp too, not because of what's going on, because I love public. So I was a big 1920, like Bonnie and Clyde's one of my favorite movies ever.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Bonnie and Clyde. I like Public
Mm-hmm.
Enemies by Johnny Depp. When I
My
make
buddy
gangster
was an
movies,
extra.
oh really? In Public Enemies?
Yeah, he was. You remember when he came out of the jail and he was surrounded by all the military style guards as he was driving out? One of my buddies was back there holding a gun. He was just a
Nice.
fill-in spot. He worked on the movie, and they
I
needed a
remember
few
that guy. I
extras.
remember that guy actually. He
there
was
was
holding the
there
gun
was
sideways like this. Yeah, I remember him.
there was several of those, but so as we kind of get into the wrap up of the show here, I want to kind of throw some lightning questions at you,
Go ahead, man. Go ahead.
and feel free to answer what you want. So, what is your favorite rapper? Now, you can give musician, but I'm mainly asking about cigar.
My favorite rapper?
Yeah,
Right. The first thing I thought about you as I
people
could throw
always
both
give
in.
me that. People
Yeah, I
always
could be
give
like
me that.
LL Cool J Sumatra. You know what I mean?
Now that's a name for a cigar. I'll tell you that if you can get him to agree to
Yeah, right.
that. What is your favorite size?
Lancero. Seven,
Okay,
7 by 38.
100% my favorite size too. I think. So let me ask you, why do you think the Lancero gets shit on as much as it does, considering
Because
that?
people feel like when they smoke it, and again, after 2007 is when the 6x60 came out. It was never there before. But I was a Gloria Cabana #2 Cuban cigar smoker, which is a Lonsdale. And I loved the Lonsdale. And then when I found out about the Lancero, I loved it even more. We know who smoked the Lancero, right? Lucky Luciano.
Oh, really?
Back then, when you were younger, you were in the mob, you smoked the Lancero. You didn't smoke a 6x60.
Well,
But
my version.
I think a lot of guys feel that if they're smoking a thin cigar, it doesn't feel right to them. My favorite of smoke ages, I like the Lancero, I like the Corona, I like the Lonsdale, I like the Toro. A little bit more than that, I smoke them once in a while, but they're not my size.
So I always would people because I've had people say to me, "Oh, you're smoking a Lancero," and I look at them like, "Dude, if it was good enough for Eastwood during Hang 'em High, it was good enough for me today." I mean,
Oh, I was
that's
a
what a
big
lot of
Eastwood
the
fan. Hang 'em high, yeah.
that was a lot of the cigars back. It's like when people ask me about Candelas, how do you like Candelas? And I go, that's like one of the original wrappers, right? Because it was easy. And in fact, and it was blown me away, but when I've watched some of the old TV shows, for instance, Adam's Family, when they brought him to color, he's smoking a Candela. You
The
don't know
Garment Center,
that.
that's all the Garment Center in New York is all they smoke with Candelas.
So why do you think Candela is just nothing now? Not a lot of people like it.
Because so many other rappers came out. I mean, back in the 90s, San Andreas, nobody wanted a San Andreas, but the way they did it in Nicaragua with all the different dealers with it, became an incredible rapper. Palettes developed over time.
No, and I completely agree.
And
The
most people, when
traditions
they
have
use
changed.
Candela now, they just use a little bit of it. I think they're afraid to make a whole Candela cigar. I mean, we know Fuente did, Espinosa did, and a couple other brands did, which came out great. But Illusione did, which I love Illusione's Candela, by the way.
The Holy Lancer Candela, I always tell people. So I give people
Phenomenal.
4 Candelas. I always tell them start with the factory smokes Candela from Thompson because it's cheap. It'll give you a great flavor. Move to the 858, then move to the Wasabi, and then after the Wasabi, take on the Holy Lancer. And the Holy Lancer, I think, is the most beautiful, picture perfect approach to a Candela.
Perfect. Wonderful cigar.
So
I
then
agree.
we talked about your drinks. What is your favorite cut?
Straight cut.
Okay, do you bite off the ends ever, or fingers, or anything
So our
like that?
Lancero is a Cuban pigtail. We just pull it off. But some people still cut it. I've seen people cut it, which I don't understand. But the thing about our Lancero is it doesn't get hot, and it always stays lit. So it's a really good Lancero. And you know the blender by the way they roll the Lancero.
Yeah, and Lanceros are hard to roll too, which is why they're usually a little bit more expensive. So since you're a history buff, if you had and don't someone other than Winston Churchill, right? Because that's just the go-to. If you had somebody in history to bring a Rockefeller cigar to and smoke with, who would it be?
George Washington.
Why?
Because George Washington's a brother. I don't know if you know what that means. But if you do, that's why.
Masonic?
Yes.
My granddad was a Masonic. When he passed away, they did the whole. He was Masonic, Scottish Rite, and Sons of the Confederacy,
You
and
get it.
absolutely. So I got to watch that whole traditional Masonic burial. But then I got to go to the, for lack of a better term, the Grand Poobah room,
Yeah.
because it always makes me think of the Flintstones, right? My granddad
Oh, the Shrine
started
hat? Yeah.
my granddad started the Masonic Lounge in Ocala, Florida. He was the founder, one of
Nice.
the founding people of that lounge that built it. So when he passed away, they were like, we're not really supposed to do this, but because of who your grandfather was, we'll take you back in the room. You're not allowed to take any pictures. So they were like, this is where your granddad sat for X amount of years, because I guess they rotate inside the Masonic world for who leads the ritual stuff. And so I got to sit in his chair, and then they opened up his Masonic file and they gave me the very first picture that he ever submitted to the lounge.
Nice.
And I got to keep that. And then I have also some DeMolay, which you would know what DeMolay is.
Yeah,
The kid stuff. I have all my dad's DeMolay badges and
Oh, that's
necklaces
awesome.
and formal wear and stuff like that. So,
So that's our Lancero, by the way.
yes, that was in the
And I'm about to pull the
smoking.
pigtail up. Yep. Yep.
That was in the smoking. That's actually one of our friends, Shirtless Mike's. That's one of his favorite cigars.
Thank you, Mike.
Is that Lancero? So here's a great question from Cody. If you could talk to your 16-year-old self, what would advice you would give yourself?
So my son has Asperger's. Oh, myself or my son?
If you could talk to your 16-year-old self today, what
That's
would
a
you
great
tell
question.
yourself?
Not to do the stupid fucking shit you did when you were 16. But I would do it anyway because I don't regret any of it because that's how you learn.
You know, I have only one regret in life, and I should have a shit ton more. I regret only that I ever started smoking cigarettes.
I never smoked cigarettes. I almost did, but we went to a person's house. I think I was about 10 years old, and he gave me a cigarette, and he said, inhale it. And I felt sick, and I never smoked another cigarette, so he did me a favor.
So what is a time period that you would love to be dropped into?
1929.
Is it because of the
1930s.
is it the gangster, the mob scene? Is that fascinating to you?
And Wall Street.
Okay. So before the crash.
No, after the crash.
Now explain that. Why after the crash?
It was the greatest buying opportunity in a lifetime.
So would you treat it like the Marty McFly and go back with an almanac and start making purchases for the future?
Yes.
Now, if you were an incredibly rich beyond means man, would you still start a cigar business?
Oh, I would make it even better than it could be. Yes.
Okay. And then kind of to close, tell everybody where Kevin finds his love of cigars and why cigars have been so important to you over the last 30 plus years.
So every time I feel myself getting stressed out before I owned the company, I would always pick up a cigar, sit back, relax, and smoke it, almost like meditation. You know what I mean? It would like relax me to no end. And I found over the years that it was a great way to relax. And then when I started going to lounges, I felt it was a great way to interact with people. And you know what I mean? Have conversations because again, it's the common denominator, the common bond. You go in, it doesn't matter who you are, but you have a great time. So that would probably be the answer.
Absolutely. And I second that.
And nothing's changed. Like I say, I'm a brand owner, but I'm a cigar smoker. So
Sure.
that's the problem. When I go on the road, I end up sitting in lounges for 3 hours. And, you know, if you ever want to lose time, you go to a cigar lounge.
I know. My wife could totally tell you that. I would leave at 9 a.m., get to the lounge, hang out, and it's all of a sudden 5 p.m. and you're like, where the fuck did the time go?
Every time. Non-fail.
What is your biggest pet peeve when Kevin walks into a cigar lounge?
When somebody takes a cigar and puts it out.
So you believe in dying with dignity?
I believe that. Listen, if you want to leave a cigar over, I don't like it because I know what's involved in it, but I get it. You're not a big smoker. But someone takes it and pushes it into the ashtray, that drives me fucking crazy.
Now, why is that such a sign of disrespect?
Because I know what goes into the leaf and making it, and how many hands have touched it. You know what I mean? And what delicacy and it's arsenal and the art involved in it. To me, that's a disrespect.
And I don't disagree with you. I always, you know I try to always let my cigars die with dignity because of that. I was actually jumped on once when I first did that at a lounge. No, it's not. But as a cigarette smoker, I went and pat, and somebody actually was like, "No, you don't do that."
And listen, I've seen some crazy shit over the years. I saw one guy, you know, that 5 cutter, that silver cutter, put his cigar in to cut it with his pinky in it. It almost lost his whole pinky. Like, I've seen some nutso stuff. I don't like when a wet cigar and then you put it in a cutter. That drives me crazy. Certain little things.
For sure. Now, is there something that stands out about you when you walk into a lounge where you're just like, I'm going to leave?
Yeah, if there's too much political talk, usually.
Yes, yes. I've had some great cigars ruined
Because I like
by
to hang
some.
out in a lounge and fucking relax. You know what I mean?
I've had some great cigars ruined by some bad conversation. Um, and to go back to what you said before, it's the
Or if
common
somebody else is
denominator.
putting somebody else down, I don't like that either.
Yeah, I don't either. That
You know what I mean?
there's
Cocky
yeah,
people like that. That bothers me a lot too.
absolutely. And to touch on your point for the common denominator, I went up to a lounge here in Denver, and I was sitting, unbeknownst to me, was sitting next to a guy worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And then we started talking, and come to find out he was an executive at a very, very big chain at some point in time and retired from that. And we were smoking the same cigar. And then
Exactly.
another guy came in, and he had just sold his .com for a couple $1 billion a few years prior. And again, we were smoking the same cigar. And so I was for a minute there, I felt as on every level as them, because we both bought the same thing, we both are enjoying the same thing, and it didn't matter
Right.
that I had barely anything to my name versus these guys, so okay, well, in wrapping up here, I am going to give you the last bit of time that we have, and take as much time as you want, because it's my show and I don't have a hard date. Um, so you can, the last little bit of the show goes to you. Then I'll do a thank you to my sponsors, and then we'll go ahead and end it for the night. So the floor is yours, Kev.
So thank you for everybody for letting me speak and learning about Rockefeller. If there's anything else you want to learn, you can reach out to me or Allison on Instagram or on Facebook. We'd be happy to spend time with you and teach you about the brand. And we look forward to seeing you on the road. You know, sometimes what we do too is just stop at people's houses. Like a good friend of mine in Kansas, my friend Tyler, we stopped at his house and hung out in his garage and smoked. It was a great time because I truly believe that the industry is all about having good times and enjoying the smoke and being a lover of the leaf. And that's basically it. And I thank you.
Absolutely. And I thank you so much, Kev, for bearing with me and my crazy shitty day. And this is one of the things that I do every week and look forward to is relaxing for me, so I really truly appreciate your kindness, for being willing to stick with me and have this interview tonight. And thank you so much. And to everybody watching, thank you very much. Things got a little screwy. I will be reposting this interview on Facebook as well, all over the place. Kev, you're more than welcome to do the same thing. And I really appreciate that you felt like I brought a little something different to the interview than what you normally experience.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's fun for me. I
Enjoyed
enjoy
it.
hearing that, because you guys do so many of these, and a lot of times, when you talk to certain people, they're like, "Dude, I just tell the same fucking story every single time." So I always try to bring out something a little bit different to the approach on this. And I'm not a product heavy show. I'm more of a, like
Right.
you said, get to know you, the experiences that you've had.
No, I had a
So
great
thank
time.
you so much for coming on. And thank you so much to everybody that watched and stuck by me for the late show tonight. I truly, truly appreciate you. And thank you so much to BAMF Cigars, Drew Estate, K by Karen. We have the drink that I had tonight was the Axe and Oak rye whiskey. If you've not had Axe and Oak, definitely give them a shot. They are absolutely fantastic. So we have Christoph Cigars. Thank you so much. K by Karen, Berger, and the official humidor of the show is New Air. If y'all are looking for a fantastic humidor, jump in the description, grab my 15% off promo code, and use it to buy yourself the best damn humidor that you can. And I would be completely remiss without saying a big thank you, as always, to Abe DeBabna over at smokein.com. smoking cigars, as he was the first one that found any value in my show and believed in me from the very beginning. So thank you so much to everybody watching. Thank you so much to Kevin for coming on. And I look so forward to seeing what Rockefeller has in the future for everybody. So until we see everybody again, smoke what you like. Smoke as often as you can. Have a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.